Sarah worked double shifts at a small diner, barely making enough to cover her rent and basic needs. Every day, she watched an elderly homeless man sit outside in the cold, his weathered face showing years of hardship. Despite having only $80 in tips saved for her own Thanksgiving dinner, Sarah decided to use that money to buy him a warm holiday meal. She knew this meant having nothing left for herself, but seeing his hunger pained her more than her own empty stomach. 3 days later, as Sarah served her regular customers, a well-dressed man walked in with a letter that would turn her simple act of kindness into something that touched millions of hearts worldwide. Hi everyone, welcome to Mythos Weaver. Today, I'm excited to share a new story with you. Sarah worked as a waitress at Ruby's Diner in downtown Chicago. Her small apartment rent took most of her paycheck, leaving her with barely enough for basic needs. Maybe these extra shifts will help me save for winter, she said to herself every morning at 7 a.m. Sarah noticed an elderly homeless man sitting on the bench across from the diner. "I'm James," he had told her one morning. His gray hair and kind eyes reminded her of her late grandfather. She often saw him searching through trash bins for food, which broke her heart. Despite his situation, he never seemed to complain. He simply nodded when she offered him a warm cup of coffee or a small meal, his gratitude shining through. "Just ignore him," Sarah's fellow waitresses said. "He's driving customers away." Some customers complained, but Sarah could not look away. She knew there was more to James than his appearance. "A few dollars saved each day and I'll have a nice Thanksgiving dinner," she thought. During her morning shifts, Sarah would sneak James a cup of hot coffee when no one was looking. "Thank you, dear," he would say with a gentle smile. "Lost my home after getting sick. Couldn't keep up with the medical bills," he had explained. The conversations were brief but meaningful, and Sarah started to feel a connection to him, as if he were family. $80 saved, Sarah counted her tips. She planned to buy a small turkey and some sides. The night before Thanksgiving, the temperature dropped below freezing. Through the diner window, she saw James huddled on his bench trying to stay warm. "Grandpa always said helping others matters more than helping yourself," she whispered, remembering his words. As she looked at him, she felt a deep sense of compassion for this man who had so little yet had so much to give in terms of kindness and grace. Without hesitation, she took her saved tip money and went to the grocery store after her shift. "That will be $78, the cashier said. Sarah's hands shook as she handed over her savings. "Bread for dinner tomorrow, it is," she thought to herself. "Here's something warm for Thanksgiving, James," Sarah said, approaching his bench. His eyes lit up at the sight of the hot food. "God bless you," he whispered, tears rolling down his withered cheeks. As she wrapped the blanket around his shoulders, she noticed a small silver chain around his neck, but thought nothing of it at the time. She never expected that this small act of kindness would carry such weight. That night, Sarah went home to her cold apartment. Her stomach growled, but her heart felt warm. She had no idea that her simple act of kindness was about to change not just her life but the lives of many others in ways she could never imagine. She sat alone in the silence of her apartment, thinking about how fortunate she was despite her circumstances. She had a job, a roof over her head, and enough to eat. But most importantly, she had a heart that could still care for others. The next morning, Sarah walked to work in the cold November wind. She noticed James wasn't at his usual spot. The bench sat empty, covered in frost. "I hope James is okay," she whispered, worrying through her morning shift. Around noon, a tall man in an expensive suit walked into the diner. "Just coffee, please," he said, sitting in Sarah's section. He watched her serve other tables, making notes in his small notebook. During her break, Sarah overheard other waitresses talking. "Did you see that story on the news?" one said. "A wealthy businessman disappeared 3 months ago, and his family's still searching for him." The man in the suit came back the next day. "Coffee again, please," was all he would say. On the third day, he spoke up. "Sarah, would you please sit down? I'm Michael Thompson, private investigator. I've been watching your interactions with James. Am I in trouble for the free coffee? Sarah asked nervously. No, not at all, Michael smiled, pulling out a photograph. Do you recognize this man? Sarah's hands began to shake as she looked at the younger James in a business suit. James Harrison was CEO of Harrison Technologies, Michael explained. After his wife died, he couldn't cope. He donated his money to charity and disappeared. His daughter hired me to find him. Sarah couldn't believe it. The silver chain around his neck, his wedding ring, Michael nodded. He keeps it close to remember his wife. Where is James now? Sarah asked. Left early Thanksgiving morning for his daughter's house, Michael said. Before leaving, he told me, find the waitress who showed me kindness when no one else would. I'm just happy he's safe and warm with his family, Sarah said, tears forming in her eyes. Sarah went back to work, unaware that her life was about to change. The next morning would bring a surprise that would leave everyone in the diner speechless. The following morning, Sarah arrived early for her shift. The diner buzzed with unusual activity. 2 TV news vans were parked outside. Sarah, there are people here to see you, her manager said, looking stunned. In the largest booth sat James, now clean-shaven and wearing an elegant suit. Next to him was a young woman who shared his kind eyes. Hello, Sarah, James said, standing up. I'd like you to meet my daughter. We've been looking for my father for months, Emma said, her voice breaking. Your kindness brought him back to us. James spoke softly. That Thanksgiving meal reminded me of my late wife. She always said a warm meal could heal a broken soul. Your compassion woke me up from a long, dark dream. More people entered the diner. Michael Thompson appeared with documents in hand. Sarah James has something to tell you, he said. I've established a foundation in your name, James announced. The Sarah Wilson Foundation for Homeless Care. We're starting with $5 million. Sarah's legs grew weak. A chair appeared behind her just in time. I don't understand, she said, staring at the papers in disbelief. That's not all, Emma added. Dad bought this diner. He's making you the manager with a full ownership stake. Sarah's coworkers gathered around, their eyes filled with tears. The local news crews filmed, capturing the moment as James explained his plans to turn the diner into a place where homeless people could get free meals. But why? Sarah asked, still processing everything. Why are you doing all this for me? Because you saw me as a human being, not just a homeless man, James replied. You gave your last dollars to help me, expecting nothing in return. You've changed everything for me, Sarah. The diner erupted in applause. Customers wiped tears from their faces. Outside, more news vans arrived as the story spread, the cameras rolling on the incredible transformation. There's one more thing, James said, reaching into his pocket. My wife's favorite saying is engraved on this. He handed Sarah a small silver bracelet. Sarah read the words through tears, kindness given freely returns tenfold. Sarah, come look at this. Emma called, holding up her phone. Your story is everywhere on social media. Local newspapers want interviews, Michael said. Would you be comfortable speaking to them? I never thought helping someone would create such attention, Sarah replied, overwhelmed by the unexpected spotlight. The diner had transformed within days. Regular customers watched as workers installed a new sign reading, "Everyone deserves a warm meal." The place was now buzzing with energy, full of promise and hope. How many people did we serve today? James asked, now dressed in his business suit but sitting at his old bench, taking it all in. 73, Sarah smiled. Look at this, she showed him a stack of receipts. Customers keep paying extra, saying, use this for someone who needs it. It's unbelievable. An elderly woman approached their table. Are you Sarah? She asked, her voice trembling with emotion. My son lived on these streets for years. Please, sit down, Sarah offered warmly. How can I help? Someone showed him kindness, just like you did for James, the woman continued. Now my son has a job, a home. Here's $500. Help more people, please. The kitchen staff worked steadily, preparing meals for the growing crowd. We need more cooking space, Sarah told James, looking around at the bustling kitchen. More people come every day, and we're running out of room. Already planned, James nodded, his voice filled with determination. Construction starts next week. But that's not all. Emma joined them, carrying blueprints. We're opening 3 more locations, she announced. Sarah, we want you to oversee all of them. A young man stumbled in, his clothes ragged, his face pale with hunger. I haven't eaten in 2 days, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Take any seat you'd like, Sarah smiled warmly, gesturing for him to sit. What can I get you? I don't have money, he whispered, looking down in shame. You don't need any, Sarah replied, her voice firm but kind. That's not how we work here anymore. James watched from his bench as Sarah served the man. Remember when you used to sneak me coffee? He asked with a knowing smile. Look what that small act of kindness created. A single act of passion can start a chain reaction, Sarah said, touching her silver bracelet. I understand that now more than ever. Every day is a chance to help someone, to make a difference. 3 months later, Sarah stood in the renovated diner's kitchen. We served over 200 people today, she told her staff. Each one has a story, just like James did. It's more than just meals, it's about giving them a second chance. Sarah, you need to see this. Emma rushed in, holding a letter. The city council voted. They're giving us 6 more locations. And that's not all, James added, walking in with Michael. Remember the foundation money? It's grown to $15 million from donations. This is only the beginning. A reporter asked Sarah for an update. How has life changed since that Thanksgiving night? I still work the same hours, Sarah smiled. Just differently now. Instead of worrying about tips, I worry about having enough seats for everyone. The community is growing, and it's amazing. A small girl tugged at Sarah's sleeve. My mom says you helped my daddy, she said, looking up with wide, hopeful eyes. He has a job now. He's not sleeping in the park anymore. Your daddy helped himself, Sarah knelt down to her level, offering a gentle smile. We just gave him a warm meal and a chance to turn things around. James watched from his regular spot, proud of the impact Sarah had made. Sarah turned this place into what I always wanted but couldn't do alone, he told visitors. She's the heart of this place, and now it's something greater than I could ever imagine. Every morning, Sarah placed a fresh coffee cup on the counter for anyone who needed warming up. The diner's wall now displayed hundreds of thank you notes, each one a testament to the lives Sarah had touched. You gave me hope, one read. Your kindness saved my life, said another. Sarah often touched her silver bracelet, remembering that cold Thanksgiving night. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes, she told new volunteers. Ready to close up? Emma asked one evening as the diner began to quiet down. Just one more cup of coffee, Sarah smiled, serving a shivering woman who had just walked in. Everyone deserves a warm welcome. Love this story? Tap that like button and subscribe to Mythos Weaver for more. Let us know how this story made you feel with a single word in the comments.